You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Welcome back to Music Tectonics, where we go beneath the surface of music and tech. I'm your host, Dmitry Vitsa, the founder and CEO of Rock, Paper, Scissors, a music and tech PR firm. We've got a couple of interviews for you this week, and we're still coming off the Music Tectonics high from the conference we had in late October, meetups in early November in LA. And we want to bring you the winner of the Music Tectonics Swimming with Narwhals Music Tech Startup Competition that we presented in conjunction with BandLab. So at the end of the show, you'll hear from Zan Schwinn from Choral Hub, who was the winner of the Music Tectonics Startup Competition. But I've got another great interview for you first. We're kicking off today's episode with Rob Bonstein, the VP of Membership at HIFI. HIFI is a star of music tech in their own right, but they're also a star supporter of this year's Music Tectonics Conference, which took place earlier this year. Rob spoke at our conference and dove into some of our online events as well, and we wanted to catch up with him before too much time passed. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dmitry.
Great to have you here. All right. So we had your CEO, Damian Manning, on the podcast back in January of this year, 2021. And then your team partnered with us on the conference in October, putting together a session called Beyond Analytics, Making Your Financial Data Actionable. And I just love how everyone on your team, when I work with you guys, is so committed to helping artists and artist teams untangle the financial side of making a living at music. It's such a mess. It's so complicated. And listeners can actually go back and listen to that podcast with Damian from January, or they can catch the playback of your panel in the Music Tectonics app, which is, for those of you who don't know, available for free for now in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. So make sure to go check it out. But in a nutshell, Rob, your company HIFI gives members, their artists, that gives them access to data and insights about their multiple revenue streams in a dashboard, and it combines that with educational materials and webinars you guys are doing all the time to help these artists sort out where their income's coming from and where they may have blind spots or missed opportunities. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right. We're a membership organization building products and services around the goals of transparency and financial solutions for artists. So that can take a lot of forms, and so far that's taken the form of the HIFI Royalties dashboard, which is a mobile app that allows artists to centralize all their royalty income in one place, as well as a number of other products and services currently in development.
Yeah, so when I spoke with Damian back in January, you guys were beta testing a new service called Cashflow, which allows artists to get a consistent payment like a paycheck based on past and expected revenues. Did that get rolled out more fully? How's that coming along?
Yeah, so in 2021, we've run a pilot of Cashflow, and we recently acquired a company called the Music Fund that came out of the Techstars Music Accelerator. TMF had been putting money in artists' hands as well based on forecasted revenue. So between the two of us, we've learned an incredible amount from our combined experiences. We're leveraging that and taking the technical and data science capabilities of all of our combined teams to roll out the next evolution of HIFI Cashflow, which is just going to continue our mission to provide enhanced liquidity for artists. And we're just really excited about that launching soon.
Got it. So what are other new services? Are there new services for your members that you guys have rolled out this year that are on the horizon as well?
Well, yeah, this space is wide and full of opportunities. If you just talk to any artist manager, business manager, anyone who touches the financial life of an artist, you'll hear about all of the entangled financial, legal, royalty issues that they need to be aware of just to get a sense of how their client's business is operating. So for us, it's about editing that ambition down to focus on the most core needs of the professional tier of the music industry and expand from there. So that's meant continuing to build on that foundation of the mobile HIFI Royalties dashboard, but also launching an expanded version for business management professionals, which is also rolling out soon. Of course, we have lots more in the pipeline, given the space that we're in.
Gotcha. So you're still adding more features to the dashboard itself so people can get access to the info they need in a timely way and get some insights from it and so forth. Adding another element for business managers, for artists too, because they probably have different needs like multiple artists or other types of insights they can take away as well.
Yes, many artists, obviously they're not conducting business from a phone the way that an artist or manager likely is almost all the time. So, the needs are different. The ability to create a more powerful environment for them is something that we're working on.
Cool. Well, glad to get a little bit up to speed with you since our last interview with Damien. So how was the Music Tectonics conference for you? I'm curious, were there any interesting takeaways from your panel or other sessions or other things you did at the conference?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, this is I think the first conference I've attended where the initial touch point was a metaverse version of the conference, which was pretty cool. I got to jump into, Deggy World, to watch some of the startup pitches. And I think Mark Mulligan's keynote the week before the rest of the conference started. So it was just cool to, kind of walk around the virtual room and to see some of the familiar names that were in the audience, not just to experience what's on the screen, kind of have a little bit of the same serendipity that you'd have in an in-person event. And nudge me to catch up with folks or to email them on the side and say, hey, I caught you over here. Let's schedule a time to reconnect. The day of my panel, I caught Will Page and Vicky Nauman in their keynote, and I love both of them. Always great to hear their thoughts and just overall the quality of conversations and topics. I loved meeting a few of the folks that I hadn't met before who were on my panel and hearing similar perspectives about us focused on the artist side of things, from people like Sarah Kesselman, kind of looking at things from the label perspective and how to kind of navigate the same universe, but almost the other side of the coin. And it's challenging for everybody. And obviously that always gets our brains going. So exciting to have those conversations.
That's cool that you had that experience. Just because with Music Tectonics, we're always thinking about like the ecosystem as a whole. And sure, managers and labels have overlapping needs as it relates to compensation of artists or passing through money or all that kind of stuff, but they're not exactly the same. So that's cool that you had the experience of sort of having both of those conversations happening at the same time there. Because some of the conferences are very specific. Obviously, the Mediums and the music biz have like whole ecosystem, but then you have like the A2IM Indie Week and things like that where it's very label focused, which is great, and they have specific needs, but you might not have as many managers in the room, for example.
Yeah, no, I've always thought that the music industry is not just a handful of really big businesses and increasingly public businesses, but it's actually the conglomeration of tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands or more small businesses, which is the artist businesses, which is what obviously we're really interested in, and where the rubber really meets the road, I think, in terms of moving things forward creatively and building on the passion of fandom and everything else that really keeps things going.
Yeah, makes sense for a company like yours because the biggest companies are oftentimes building their own infrastructure, their own technology, and there's the smaller and the medium ones that really could use the help of, especially when they work with so many different like streaming services or revenue platforms or publishing administration, sound exchange, all of these things. It's, you almost need like this third party to put it all together for you.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody should make a company.
Well, good point, actually. We mentioned that you're the VP of membership there at HIFI. Tell us a little bit more about your role. What does that mean and how does that play out?
Sure. Yeah. I run our membership organization and sort of advocate the perspectives and needs of artists, what they're looking for from HIFI. So obviously that's the touch points with artists and their teams themselves, as well as working internally on all of the ways that we reflect those needs by the products that we're creating. So, we say this to new members, prospective members, investors, everybody. Our roadmap is entirely informed by the needs of our membership and the drive to address, the most pressing needs in the music industry, with a specific focus on that, individual artist and their immediate team. So, that's our North Star. I've sat historically in seats between major labels, management, live touring for over 15 years. And I've seen a lot of financial information in the music industry from all those different perspectives. And artists have some of the least timely, most obscured versions of access to their own financial life. They're always trying to navigate extremely important business and deal decisions with imperfect information. So, we're really thrilled to be working on that side of the business and to be positioned there alongside the artists, where I think, as you were just saying, those are the size entities that need a true technology partner to help them, grow and scale.
Yeah, makes tons of sense. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Rob, I want to ask you a little bit about the bigger picture conversation about artist compensation and where we are as we come to the end of the year. We'll be right back. Whoa, the ideas are flying fast on this episode. If you want to follow up on anything we're talking about today, we've made it easy. head over to musictectonics.com and find this episode on the podcast page. You'll see show notes full of links and a time-stamped roadmap of the conversation. We're not responsible for internet rabbit holes you tumble down in the process. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Okay, we are back. And Rob, like I said, I wanted to widen out a bit. You're at the center of this conversation about artist compensation. As you just said before the break, you're the one that's kind of advocating for members. How would you describe where things are for artists in late 2021 as opposed to, say, the last couple of years? Has anything changed significant? Are things better? Are they worse? Where are we right now with artist compensation in that conversation?
Sure. I mean, we're just excited to see so many artists, spreading their wings and exploring and, navigating so many new ways to exist in the modern music industry. There's so many new options for artists. And that's been a trend that's been growing for the better part of, 10 years as the world has moved to streaming. But it's just, seems like it's proliferating almost exponentially from, distributors and other services, funding opportunities, content sale opportunities, Web3 powered technologies for fandom and finance. Artists are going to continue to need a neutral, transparent, and effective partner by their side to untangle the financial side of all those things. So, that obviously makes us really excited. But, the things that I think might be tougher for artists is, there are more likely to be specific solutions out there that are right for an artist and for their creative business ambitions. But that search process and navigating everything that might be coming up, the deals that might be coming on the table from new partners, traditional partners, other kinds of emerging players is just more and more complicated. So, we hear from artists all the time that have music released by 3, 4, 5 different distributors because they've been shopping it around. But if one song or one EP or one album blows up and they get on the right Spotify playlist, they blow something up on TikTok, how do they react quickly to actually understand their worth? How do they evaluate the different deals that might be coming at them? Where are they going to be a year from now, 2 years from now, if they take option A or B or C? There's better and more options than ever before, but it's an even harder kind of landscape to navigate in. And I think that's what we're, really helping provide.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've seen all these new tools come into place for distribution and then marketing and so forth, but all the revenue opportunities are very dispersed. In the old days, the dispersion was through, say, national or international marketing, and they were in stores, right? There were lots of different stores, and you work through a distributor, but you'd still get one check, basically. Yeah, and new territories, but you typically get one check from each distributor. You wouldn't have a zillion distributors. But now streaming is its own entity, right? But in addition, there's these other revenue opportunities that don't have the same kind of like well-traveled pathways. And so you don't necessarily have the same kind of user interface experience of all these, the maybe it's even the sync or the video games or the fitness apps or wherever else this money's starting to come. NFTs and Web3 stuff's a whole other category as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for hearing from some people in that market, if there's some percentage of every secondary transaction that happens on an NFT or any other kind of exchange that's taking place in the future, that in itself, those 20% fees on future transactions could become in themselves a new royalty stream for the artists to think about. Right. So we have royalty streams on royalty streams at this point.
Yeah, totally makes sense. But in the big picture, I mean, it seems like the conversation has gone from this critique of the small per stream payouts to, now that everything's digitized, there's actually a lot of other opportunities that are emerging, and there's other things. It's kind of a pain. It's very fragmented, very difficult to manage all of it, but there's new opportunities. So it seems like, to me, it sounds like the timbre of the conversation has shifted a little bit over the last year.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, that there are so many new avenues to explore, and obviously artists have had a difference in their ability to get out and do some of the more traditional things like touring. But I think that environment has created an opportunity for artists to explore these new avenues, to immerse themselves in these worlds of Web3, and but also to just get back to the basics of administration, checking and making sure they've gotten paid on all the things they're supposed to get paid on, working with their teams to unearth those those royalty payments or letters of direction that didn't somehow never got to the finish line. And we heard from plenty of people that they've seen substantial revenue from these traditional channels that had just been underappreciated and under leveraged over the last handful of years. And again, that's something that connects really closely to the sort of things that we're looking at as well.
Cool. Well, appreciate you doing that pulse check with me. I love, talking to people in different parts of the industry because everyone's got a different seat. They get a different window. And sometimes we hear similar kind of insights, but from different perspectives, which actually validates the conversation in a lot of ways too. So now we get to go to the future facing side, as is our tradition on the Music Tectonics podcast. Let's get sci-fi now. When you imagine an ideal near future music industry, what do you see? You can get a little bit, push a little further into the vision, the imagination of the future world.
Yeah, I mean, I think one place I'll start with, and you alluded to the things being more digital than ever before. Obviously, that's been a multi-decade trend at this point. But one thing that we're still working towards, the best ways to do this, is artists being more intimately connected to their core fans. Knowing who they are, being able to reach them without the intermediaries that have typically made it challenging to reach folks, whether it's social media giants or ticketing companies or other people who actually own, or streaming companies even, that sort of own that last mile relationship with the fan. Some of these new trends are coming up with new ways. It's artists that are running their own Discords or DAOs that are based around artists and their fandoms. That's a really exciting trend, and just artists also getting better at traditional CRM, and whether it's some of the mobile messaging oriented approaches or just old fashioned email. That's something that always needs to be diligently pursued by artists and their teams. But also enjoying the scale and discovery that's out there with streaming and social. Navigating that balance, I think, is something that the best artists do incredibly well. Embracing that sort of fragmentation. Other stuff, just hopefully getting paid in a much more timely fashion that reflects the immediacy of the streaming and digital world. Hopefully understanding and collecting on all the types of royalties that people ought to be collecting on. And there's obviously a lot of folks out there that are trying to wave that flag, from performance royalties, mechanicals, and other channels that a lot of artists don't realize that they are songwriters as well as recording artists. And, we're excited just to see that be something that, continues to be a learning process for artists. But yeah, feeling free to collaborate, sign with the right partners, sign new kinds of deals on the right terms, and really just build sustainable long-term careers that satisfy them, creatively and financially. And obviously in an ideal world, I'm looking forward to, more touring and live festivals than ever before, and a roaring 20s that we really hope is, right around the corner for artists as well. And having come from the touring world, and most recently, it's something that I'm quite excited to see ramp back up, and obviously catch some shows for the first time in a while, and many, many more soon to come.
Yeah, awesome. Can't wait to see it happen. So as we wrap up this speed round, Rob, are there any other trends or companies emerging in the music industry that you'd like to shout out for their innovation?
Sure. I mean, we mentioned Web3. So, we love companies like Royal, Rally, some others, a couple that are sort of in stealth mode right now. So, we have some interesting collaborations in the works that we'll be talking more about in the near future. I alluded to mechanicals. The MLC has a huge task ahead of them, rolling through a very challenging landscape. But we loved having their CEO Chris join a member event with a bunch of HIFI folks earlier this year, and explain what they're up to, make sure everybody understands how to connect to collect the mechanicals that they're due. Also, just one that was in the news just a week or two ago, the company Wave out of LA that just did a huge metaverse event with Justin Bieber. I've known a lot of the team there for a while, and just really excited to see the scale that they've been growing to with these really unique kinds of events and collaborations to bring these new types of metaverse events to more traditional audiences, things not requiring VR headsets, making it really engaging for fans and exploring the new creative potential of those kind of events, and not just treating it as a bit of a bauble. So there's a lot of really, I think, exciting stuff coming in that metaverse world as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just wild to watch how the music space is engaging with some of this creative virtual experience in a way that the music industry couldn't really do in the moment of digital piracy, right? Of the initial consumer adoption of certain technology. There just was no way to for labels to quickly figure out how to make that work financially. But with everything now being digital, now we've got this kind of a sense of how we translate rights and licensing and royalties into any digital format. As these other digital formats emerge, it's like, oh, well, now we kind of have a bit of an infrastructure and a pathway and sort of expectation of what should be done. And so it does seem like it will unlock creativity where you don't feel as resistant to try things out, whether you're an artist or an artist team or a label or whatever, a publisher even, if you know that every little step is unlocking revenue rather than threatening it.
Sure. No, and I think also some of the most exciting pieces of infrastructure, which is fan infrastructure. How do you recreate that experience of meeting another kid in the back of a show wearing the same band T-shirt as you, and then making a plan to go see that band, and going to a record store and getting turned on to some new music, and sort of some of those types of relationships are being built online, and some of that kind of fandom has new places to express itself. Again, like I said, through Discord and some of the Web3 technologies, that makes me super excited to see what that is going to look and feel like in the future. And just excited, as you said, for artists and their teams to just kind of dive in feet first and just get going with all of it.
Awesome. Well, cool. It's been great to catch up with you, Rob. Thanks for coming out and speaking at the conference, being a part of the community. Love that you're balancing both this conversation about fair compensation and also just how to put all the pieces together with this future leaning opportunities that are coming for creativity, for artists as well. That's a great balance to have. Don't always hear that in the same conversation. So it's cool to hear your mindset, and great to get a chance to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here, Rob.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed being a part of the conference and enjoyed our conversation today. Thanks.
Okay, we've got a little bit more from our woman on the street, Tristra Newyer-Yeager, who you usually hear on the podcast, who interviewed some of the folks at the Music Tectonics meetup in LA this November 2021. Let's hear from her. And after that, stay tuned because we've got Zan Schwinn from the Choral Hub coming up soon.
May I ask, who are you?
Ann Kavanagh from Stereo. So we're a streaming service for Uber and Lyft drivers to promote new music to passengers in the back of the car.
Wow.
Two key differences are all the content that we serve is new releases, and then we incentivize the drivers, i.e. the users, to actually use the service. I think one of the things that we're most excited by is, over the last year and a half in COVID, seeing independent artists rise and becoming less dependent on the ecosystem and really understanding the value in themselves. So I think we're really excited to be a part of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I have one question, and I got to ask DJ, what are you most excited about for 2022 when it comes to music tech? What are you most like wakes you up, you get up in the morning, you're like, this is awesome that this is happening, finally, that kind of...
I mean, I'm really excited about Music Tectonics. I'm really excited about coming back to the next conference. And I know that seems like trying to suck up to you answer, but this is one of the first conferences that I've actually been excited to attend.
Really? Why?
One, because I'll be here in person, but two, because it actually allows me to connect with people.
Yeah?
It's like a 45-minute panel and then 15 minutes of speed networking.
Did you meet some folks that way, or?
Lots of folks, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, not a lot of them are here, but it's great. It's a great kind of jumping off point. I feel like you guys do a great job of choosing kind of activities that kind of make you interact with people.
Yeah, so, it's hard to ignore somebody, it's hard to give someone the cold shoulder when they're riding the goat next to you.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Or like when you used to have the cards that you had to like talk to other people to collect.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's
So that aside, thank you
definitely
for your
ducked
kind
your
words.
question. Yeah,
Thank
bought
you.
myself some time to answer your original question. I'm very excited about what we can do in the like live concert, like metaverse space. Like what can happen there. Like again, going back to the conference, like Degi World is just a slice of like the connection and overall like experience you can have. I'm excited about like smart contracts and NFTs and how that will like really solidify ownership and make it easy to like collect royalties and distribute them when necessary.
So, and you're coming from like the world of lyrics.
Yes.
As someone at Lyricfind, what aspect of that is really exciting? Like, where does that go in right now?
Well, like lyrics as an NFT, right? Like that is extremely exciting. Like where it can go. But more so than that, like it's about that. It's about the publishing information. It's about like knowing quickly who this belongs to, how we can get, how they can get paid for it, where it was exhibited, where it was seen, where it was shown, and being able to do that in a blockchain format where it's like it's non-fungible, it's there, it's solid, and it's trustworthy.
Awesome. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.
Okay, we are back, and I'm super excited. We're doing a bit of a roundup of some things that happened, some people that popped onto the radar during the conference this year. So excited to have Zan Schwinn, the CEO of the Choral Hub, the winner of our startup competition. Welcome to the show, Zan.
Thank you, Dimitri, so much for having me on the show, and also for Music Tectonics, the showcase. What an awesome platform for what's happening in music tech right now globally. So incredible to meet other startups in the space, chatting to audience members, connecting, but also just, hearing what's hot right now in the industry and, how fast the whole industry is accelerating forward. So really cool event to participate in.
Yay!
And thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, I'm just curious, how did you first hear about the Music Tectonics conference?
So you and I met last year through the BPI, which is a really great platform in the UK for the British
Phonographic?
Photographic.
I
Something.
don't know.
So they have all these great startup events. So you and I met. I then connected to the Music Tectonics community because you have that great app. And I think I was just kind of looped in. So I kept hearing about Music Tectonic things all throughout the year. And then BPI actually did a call where they said, hey, UK music tech startups, anybody who wants to pitch for this event. The competition was, a great success last year. You should think about it. And so it was kind of just, I think, inevitable. Just one of those top things that you should do as a UK music tech startup at the moment.
Awesome. What was your experience like pitching at Swimming with Narwhals?
It was honestly amazing. Probably my favorite pitching. I pitch all the time. We've done a couple of investment rounds. I've pitched at events before, but it was just, it says what it is on the tin, right? Just a really positive, engaging community platform for you to hear what's going on in a really lightweight manner. There's no, what do you mean this thing isn't figured out? Or how come you haven't thought about this part of your model? It was such a positive experience to just, get out there, share what you're doing, and get a response. So that seems like everything should be that way. You are just what everything else should be, I think.
Well, is that weird to have a pitch competition that's a little kinder, a little gentler?
I think it's necessary because, startup founders' journeys are hard enough. And just, yes, you learn so much in the scenarios where people are just asking you those hard questions over and over and over again. You feel like you're in a ring, like you're just being beat up. And yes, you come out stronger on the other side. But I do think that it's important to have platforms where people can just come and share their ideas. And even if you're not mature enough to really be pitching or winning a competition, there's no sort of, well, what do you mean you're not at this stage? I think that we all need that opportunity to just share what we're doing, get a response, go back home, work on it some more. Like, if it's, yes, you're not going to win a competition like that, but you're going to grow because you're getting all of this response and all of this feedback on where you're at. And so I think that this sort of platform is really important for a founder's growth. And really, I think is the better way to get more startups just, I talk about this all the time, the top of the funnel. Like, how do we just get more people trying out these wild, crazy ideas, trying to fix these niche problems within the industry, is just by creating a supportive environment that says, I know this is a little bit out there, but like, give it a go. And, you either succeed or you fail, but we need, if we can just create a space where we can have 100 companies rather than 10 companies, what an incredible place that would be.
It's so cool to get that feedback from you, Zan, because, well, A, you're on the other side of this competition, but B, like when we started the competition, it was sort of like, well, we're going to do a music tech conference. Shouldn't we have a competition? We don't want to make it like all the other ones. Like we don't want to make it too complicated and too hard. We wanted to keep it super, super simple and super straightforward. But it's great to hear that this other benefit that I hadn't even thought about, the fact that it just has this like other culture to it, is actually valuable to the ecosystem. So that's super fun to hear from. What else did you get out of participating in the Music Tectonics conference beyond the startup competition?
I mean, what didn't I get out of it? I mean, you hear about what trends are going on, not just in adjacent spaces to your own, but things that, never really cross my periphery. I'm working in music education. And so, I'm very heads down. I read all the music news about what's going on, but I felt like I really got to take a deep dive into a lot of different topic areas that I don't usually have time to explore. So that was really cool.
Awesome. That's good to hear. So in case anyone missed the conference, I don't know why our podcast listeners would miss the conference and miss the startup competition, but, we do have worldwide listeners. They could have been busy with something else. Who knows? Tell us about Choral Hub for anybody who didn't catch the pitch, and also your app, Chant. How does that work? Tell us for folks that missed it.
So the Choral Hub is on a mission to make music education accessible to everyone. Our first product is this app called Chant, which is a gaming, singing app. It teaches you how to sing, really focused on the gamification around building up habits over time. If you think sort of a Duolingo or neuroplasticity game like Lumosity or Peak, Elevate, where we kind of help to teach you the skills of singing and music generally through interactive games that hopefully encourage you to build up your confidence in your own voice, but also learn a little bit about music and how it all works along the way.
Cool. All right. Why don't you tell us what the business model is? Because so far we don't know how you're going to make this thing work as business. Not to be too startup competition interviewer, but what's the business model?
So, at the heart of this project is impact. So, building out a freemium model was kind of in the first session when we as a leadership team were deciding what we wanted to do, we said the most important thing to us is having a free offering, because that's how we're really going to get lower the barrier to entry to engaging in music to zero. So our business model is a freemium model. We have a premium subscription model. We're in private user testing at the moment, so that'll launch in 2022. That, there's a free curriculum that will be available to everyone forever for free. And then there's a premium subscription model where you can have access to lots more music to help you on your learning journey, no matter which stage you're at as an amateur or novice singer. And then there are a couple other cool kind of activity-based music packages that you can buy into. So as an example, Christmas time and you want to learn some Christmas carols, or if you are a grandparent and you want to learn some songs to sing to your grandkids or to your pets, or if you just want to learn some songs that sound really good when you're singing in the shower, that kind of thing, you can kind of engage with the platform in that way as well. So we have this sort of roadmap journey in the way that you would expect, very similar to these other platforms like Duolingo, but you can also just kind of dive in and say, actually, I really just want to learn this music for this specific time of year or event or activity.
Super interesting, super fun. I very rarely in my life said I should go take vocal lessons, but I have had moments where I was like, I wish I was a better singer, Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't have any major aspirations, just because it's like I literally have my voice. I've played around with beatboxing. I play musical instruments, but like it seems ridiculous that I don't sing, So I could.
Well, this is our master thesis at the Choral Hub is everyone can sing. It's a thing that used to be a communication tool, the way that we tell stories, the way that we interact with others. We've done loads of research, lots of articles that you can read on our blog, on our website, thecoralhub.com, about how singing is good for your mental health, social cohesion, for brain stimulation, and have all these positive well-being effects. And singing has really turned into this greater, bigger thing of something that you can or can't do. And, obviously because I'm building a singing app, I'm talking to people about singing all day, every day. It's, the majority of my conversations, the number of times that people say to me, I can't sing, is wild. Like maybe 85% of the people that I talk to. And, so we've tried to dig into the reasons why that might be true. Is it a societal effect? Is it a generational thing? Is it because of mass streaming? I talked a little bit about this during the competition. Is it because of mass streaming? Because of all these TV shows that say this is what defines a good singer, or how we talk about singing? But at the end of the day, what we're hoping at the Choral Hub to do is just to give people confidence in their own voice. Because, let's say you're a guitarist and you want to sing along with yourself, or you're a drummer and like you've never had the opportunity to sing or gain that confidence. You don't need to necessarily take vocal lessons. Maybe you just want to sing more in the shower. We're just I talk about this. I mean, I must sound like a crazy person, but my dream is to be walking in the grocery store and you just have somebody who's like singing to their veg that they're about to buy to cook for dinner that night, because there's just no qualms about me. I'm just singing about my life. And yes, maybe that sounds like a little crazy, but if you think about all the times where you hear people singing, you're in the car and somebody's rocking out, or those times where people aren't really caring about people judging them, the joy that it brings them, the joy that it brings you. I just think that it shouldn't be this big thing. It should just be something that everybody does because it's a communication tool that we all have. And wouldn't the world just be a better place if we all just sang more?
Definitely. I mean, anytime you see somebody walking down the street, maybe they have headphones on and they don't think anyone can hear them, and it brings a smile to your face when you just see somebody rocking out and enjoying themselves. Very cool. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to ask you why you're focused on music education as a music tech startup. That's not like the first thing that we expected at the competition. We'll be right back. What's up, beautiful listeners? I've got a question for you. What do you want to hear next? Let me know at pages.musictectonics.com/feedback. Suggest future guests and music tech topics you want to hear us cover and tell us how we're doing. Again, that's pages.musictectonics.com/feedback. Look forward to hearing from you. All right, we are back. And Zan, as I said, I wanted to ask you, why are you focused on music education? Maybe why singing as well? How did those become your focus for your startup?
Impact, as I said, earlier in the show, is really at the heart of what we are building. And we just thought that the thing that would be the most benefit, that we would enjoy the journey the most for, was something that contributed to the world in a positive way. My co-founder, Susie Digby, she's really built her career around getting more people singing all around the UK. She actually has her OBE in music education, which is a British award for services, essentially, a services award. And for me personally, I have studied music. I've been really privileged to study in, some of the greatest institutions in the world. And still you have all of this lack of confidence, around your own musicianship, around what sounds good, around, and people don't want to sing in front of you because you've been educated. And the more that we kind of talked about the entry points to music and engaging and how could we create a better, more musical world, music education just almost was part of the conversation without it meaning. We just kind of kept coming back to it. And so how can we create the most amount of impact by trying to get everybody to participate in music in some way? Tragically, music is being stripped out of schools, in the US and the UK. It's such an important part, at least in the UK, of the history of the country. And you think about, you hear these stories about pub songs, we used to go to the pub and everybody would sing together in the pub, or, at football matches, and, everybody's singing along. And, how do we just push the world to get back to just engaging in music in a thing that isn't more than what it is? And so I think, lowering the barrier to entry, the most intrinsic answer is through singing, because you don't have to buy an instrument. You don't have to have a specific interest. It's something that we all can do. And so it's the easiest starting point. You know, there have been lots of conversations about, well, what does that inevitably lead into later? And I think that there are so many, and that's the whole point, is that singing can lead to so many different things and can impact people's lives in so many different ways. You know, you can, whether it's just singing to yourself, whether it's singing to people around you, singing to your kids, to your pets, at events, at football matches, in the pub, you know, at Christmas time, in church, in, you know, in any place where you want to sing, you can. It's just the most intrinsic starting place for engaging in music. It's so
wild to me, because in a way you're talking about all the rituals of singing and music that have been around since the beginning of time, basically, right? Since humans evolved, I assume. I wasn't there myself. I'm not quite that old, but what's so funny is that now you're using tech as a method to sort of bring back that sort of ritual sense, that natural, organic sense of voice and sound and music. How did you get into music? I mean, were you a singer first? Did you play instruments? And then how did that get you to tech?
Well, there's just something that you said that kind of triggered another thought in my head, which is, you know, why music education in this space. And I just think that, why tech for music education? And I just think tech has been so successful in so many other things. Like, you know, we're not a great innovator as far as thinking about, you know, gaming, you know, being an easy way for people to approach learning a new thing. You know, I talked about Duolingo, I talk about neuroplasticity games, but also Headspace. You know, it's just, how do we guide people into building up these new habits and new skills? And so I think music education was inevitably going to happen. And so we just kind of said, how do we make this happen sooner?
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. What about your own personal story? How'd you get into music?
So I think I've just been singing forever. I mean, I think that my parents have kind of like modulated, the story has like evolved over time. The first time that I really remember singing was, there were these choir auditions. So it must have happened so much earlier, but I was 7 and I said, I want to do this thing. I don't know why. I don't remember being like a singer or anything. And just from there, it was just a huge snowball effect. I just loved singing so much. It was something that I did all through high school. I then went to college for it, grad school. It's just something that has moved me always. Singing with others has been like one of my life's greatest joys. So
as a kid, you had curiosity. Somebody said, okay, go for it. And then that became your whole trajectory.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. And then,
yeah.
And have you done stuff in tech before? Is this your first startup?
So my adult career has really been built at the intersection of startup tech and the arts. So that's definitely been helpful, not being a first-time founder. You know, the music industry is layered in complexities when you think about licensing and models and all of these other things. And so that's been really helpful. But, you know, tech is in almost everything that we do, almost not quite everything. And so it's just a really exciting space to be working in. And I think, you know, early on in my career, I just kind of said, my greatest passion is 16th century choral music, which is the super, super hyper niche. And it, you know, when I was studying it in university, you know, people were still not really engaging in Facebook or Twitter or websites. You know, it was all this very in-person thing. And I just thought there's a huge opportunity here to bring this whole audience. And there are a bunch of people working in that space who are kind of, you know, how do we bring this thing that's very physical in person online? I just think intellectual, it's very, the music tech space is very intellectually stimulating at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So you mentioned your co-founder. Who is on your team? How do you divide the roles?
Complicated question. So we have this awesome, huge ecosystem of people who contribute to the project. We have 6 really rad internal team who are split between, you know, myself. We have someone who works in finance and operations. We have a designer who does kind of all the app design and marketing materials. We have somebody in marketing. We have music, and we have tech dev. But we have this larger ecosystem that, you know, I still consider a core part of the team, consultants who advise on UX regularly, who, advise on UI, on marketing, on fundraising, on all of these key areas as a business. And I think at early stage, that bigger ecosystem is really how you solve all the problems, right? Building a company is so hard. And so I was really keen, as not a first-time founder, to build out that ecosystem from the very beginning, to say, I'm not going to be an expert in marketing and research and UX and all this. So how do I fill each of those spaces so that I can call on the experts for their advice, when we have these stumbling blocks? So really awesome, extensive ecosystem working on the Choral Hub at the moment.
Cool. Awesome. Before we go, I've got a couple more questions for you. Let's widen out a bit. What do you see changing in music education over the next 10 years? And how do you think it will influence the music industry? It's really two separate questions. But I'm curious, just since you're thinking about this new approach to music education, a little bit of gamification, some tech. I'm curious that side of it, where you think things will go broadly for music education. And then secondly, how you think that'll influence the traditional music industry.
Well, I think the education space generally has changed a lot. Potentially, inevitably, it was going to go digital. The pandemic definitely pushed that, accelerated that journey forward by, who knows how many years. There has been engagement in education, and how we learn has changed because of the internet, because of how our brains work, being, hyper connected to everything all the time. And so this, that plus the fact that we're now pretty much moving into a hybrid model, whether or not that's going to continue in schools, but certainly from, an adult perspective, learning from home is something, no matter who even my 70-year-old mother says, I want to learn this new skill, goes on YouTube or goes on Udemy and can learn from home. And so, the internet has created this access to educating yourselves in any way that you want. And so music education, there are a lot of really big companies that have been successful within, starting to utilize the internet and global connectivity in a really positive way. So I think music education, as far as curriculum is concerned, was inevitably going to move in this direction. But it's definitely a really exciting time. I think now is the time where it's starting to accelerate quickly, whether that was because of the pandemic or whether it was inevitably going to happen now anyway. When we think about access, I always grew up in big cities. I've always been in big cities. But imagine you live in a rural village, where you don't have just access to internet wherever you go. It's only when you're at home, or you don't have access to a teacher, or you don't have necessarily a school with a good music program, or a community center with a good music program, or, there are all of these barriers. Educating online, creating access for just a starting point, the top of the funnel for people's learning journey. And eventually, I think each part of that funnel will be built out, right? So in the early days, you have this lightweight B2C app that just kind of gets people engaging in music a little bit. But I think in the next 5-10 years, we're going to see huge advancements globally around how people access music, learning. And I think, when we talk about inevitably, how does that change the music industry? If we can get everybody engaging in music in some way, not just streaming, but, BandLab Technologies, who obviously sponsored the event, are making huge waves within the space of how do we make everyone a creator, or encourage everyone to recognize their creator within themselves. I think music education is the step before that, and is really what's kind of progressing in a really accelerated manner. What that's going to look like in 5 years, I don't know, but I think it's a really exciting time as we become comfortable, as educators become comfortable with digital and how we engage with lots of different learning types. I think that's something else. When you're in the classroom, you've got this one mode, how your one teacher teaches your classroom, which doesn't always work for everyone. The internet, digital accessibility gives you options to say, actually, I'm a kinesthetic learner. Actually, I'm a visual learner. Actually, and gives you, these new options to say, what kind of learner am I, and how do I adapt to this new skill that I want to learn. Just ease of access will mean that all the way. And as I said, I think that's just going to have knock-on effects to the later stages of the funnel, where then you have where you're learning, really complex drumming techniques or performance techniques online, and that technology is only going to grow and improve. Our abilities to sing together in time online that technology is only going to improve. So I think it's a super exciting time to be working in music education, and I think I'm really excited to see kind of what the next 5-10 years look like. But it's definitely going to be a completely different world, music industry generally, but music education, absolutely.
It's interesting. As you were talking, it made me think a little bit about the fact that if music learning is happening in a digital manner, and music distribution and music marketing already is happening in a digital manner, it almost is going to be more seamless than ever before for the youngest, newest learners of music to then go straight to quote the marketplace, which is super interesting to hear, to think about. I mean, we already have seen this transformation of how much music is getting released, how accessible it is to get your music onto the music streaming services or live streaming or anything like that. But like I grew up taking musical instrument lessons, which meant I went to somebody's house. I remember I lived in Nashville, Tennessee. I walked from my house to this music teacher's house and took my lesson, feeling guilty that I hadn't practiced. I always practiced like the last half hour before I had to go. It's like, well, at least I played once this week, But like the technology was like the fold-out music stand. That was the technology, that and the instrument. To go from there to somehow getting your music out there to the world, it was like an entirely different skill set. But if you're learning music digitally, distribution digitally, it's just not that. It's like literally on the same device, or similar kind of user interfaces, things like that. It's going to be transformational, continue to be. Well,
I think this is when we were talking about the exciting things that are happening, these small problems that are happening within the industry that are being solved by this new age of music tech startups, is there are going to be companies that are helping to solve that problem of how to move somebody from what you're talking about, learning an instrument, to becoming a creator. And that's the really interesting, eventually, as you say, the journey is going to just be really smooth from A to B because we're all comfortable with digital learning. But also, and this shouldn't be overlooked, within gamification, there will be reasons, Dimitri, why you want to sit down and practice 3 times a week, building up that sort of habit forming. You don't have to have a diligent parent who's standing over you saying, Dimitri, have you practiced your 45 minutes before you go to Diane's house, or whatever it is? And you have you have these other modes of engagement which encourage you to practice more, which actually mean less people are getting left behind in the process, because you don't have to worry about trudging in the snow the 2 miles, or paying for the bus pass, or it's all kind of exists for what your personal development needs are.
Or feeling ashamed that you didn't practice, for that matter, right? Because it feels like a game, right? It's fun instead. Yeah. Right. Cool. Awesome. All right. This has been so fun to get you in after the conference, where we've got a little bit of time to talk and flesh out some big ideas. Before we go, I've got one last question for you. Do you have any advice for other music tech startups that might be listening? Anything you've learned along the way that you'd want them to take away from today's conversation?
If you've got a wild and crazy idea, do it. Do it. I mean, ask questions, talk to people. We are no longer reinventing the wheel. You may be solving a new problem within the space, but the music tech early stage startups community is now huge. And so there are people who are so excited to help each other. This is a warm, welcoming space, as Dimitri has created with the Swimming with Narwhals. Participate in competitions like these, but just go out there and use the community in this positive way to just say, hey, I have this crazy idea. What do you think? And just go for it, because now is the time. And it's a super exciting time to be building for music tech. So yes, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Zan, thanks so much for jumping into the mix with Music Tectonics, Swimming with Narwhals, and coming on the podcast. I'm excited to see what you do next. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Dimitri.
Thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We have new episodes for you every week. Did you know you can dig deeper into all our episodes with the show notes at musictectonics.com. While you're there, look for the latest about our annual conference, sign up for our newsletter to get updates, or get the Music Tectonics app for music tech news. Everything we do explores seismic shifts that shake up music and technology the way the Earth's tectonic plates cause quakes and make mountains. Connect with Music Tectonics on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and find me, Dmitry Vitsa, if you can spell it, on LinkedIn. Bye-bye!
You're listening to Music Tectonics.